Before we finish off with the last lesson, let's just take a moment to recap and connect all the dots to create a clearer picture to put it all together. So in lesson 1, I showed you how one of the biggest differences between the mediocre and those who really make it big at something are that the super successful in any area are people that become really good at really zooming in on the finer detail and breaking down the little steps that most ordinary people just sort of overlook and remain blissfully ignorant of. So that creates the need to get really good at breaking down the little micro steps that the customer takes along the path that they take on your website. So in lesson 2, we looked at how the very first impression that a customer has of your online presence is your meta title and description that come up in Google search results, and how it's really important to design clever and creative titles and descriptions that create not only a magnetic, attractive force to get more clicks, but also prime the customer with the right feeling, which will carry over to affect how they perceive the rest of your website. And so still breaking down the customer's journey, in lesson 3 I showed you how the journey on a service-based business website is essentially just a race straight to the contact page. And so therefore the lesson was, don't leave your contact page blank and boring, okay? Treat your contact page as though it were the billboard on a popular highway. So take your most influential and priming content and put it there on your contact page to affect people's perception just prior to them getting in touch with you. Now the aim here is to try and prime customers with the right kind of feelings just prior to them getting in touch. And so what we looked at then was the reality that in order to do that really effectively, we need the customer to spend as much time on the website as possible. So in lesson 4, we looked at the idea of trying to slow the customer's journey to the contact page by structuring the website similar to the way that a retail store might be set up, to basically just grab people's attention and distract them along the way with really cool stuff, just to get them kind of playfully navigating the website and basically to spend more time there as much as possible. So with that goal in mind, the aim therefore becomes to try and entice the customer to click on more tabs on their way through to the contact page, therefore kind of creating a bit of an unexpected detour on their way to the final destination. And in lesson 5, I explained that the most effective way to do that is to be very strategic and clever about the way that we label those tabs, to use a combination of words that's going to create a greater sense of clarity and certainty in the customer's mind during that split-second moment of decision where they either decide to click or just go straight through the contact page. And then we started looking at the importance of analysing feelings in the priming process, because after all, priming is all about creating the right feelings in the customer's mind. So in lesson 6, what I explained was that feelings are a comparative thing, and so when determining what kind of feelings to prime your customer with, always take into consideration that that will be relative to how they feel when they're comparing you with your competition. And then I elaborate on this concept of feelings, and we explore this at a slightly deeper level. And we touched on something that I think that just about everybody in a sales context is kind of familiar with, which is that moment where you give the quote and the customer gets hit with that wall of resistance. So in lesson 7, I gave a pretty detailed explanation about how to get the customer over that wall of resistance by triggering maternal-like feelings of trust and paternal-like feelings of authority at the same time. Because what this does is essentially trigger feelings of voluntary compliance and create an almost kind of doctor-patient relationship in your business-customer relationship. And then building on that doctor-patient style dynamic, in lesson 8 I showed you how to structure your website to replicate the effect of a doctor's waiting room, where you've got information content just sort of decorating the site in the user's peripheral awareness to create a kind of subliminal feeling of trusted authority. And then in lesson 9, I showed you some specific ideas on how to create online content to trigger those sort of feelings by taking something of importance to the customer and breaking it down and explaining it in a way that makes it seem not only easy for them to understand, but easy for them to now feel empowered to go and take some action on, as well as showing them something as identical as possible on the website to what they're going to experience in real life to create strong feelings of familiarity, which I call the almost celebrity effect. So here's the thing about that almost celebrity effect that I described in the last lesson. So there's going to be this moment where the customer's dealing with you in real life, and there's going to be this moment where they recognize something of familiarity from the website, whether it's dealing with you personally or something else that's relevant to your business. And like I said, there's going to be this moment where to them it feels almost like bumping into someone that they recognize from TV. And they're going to get this feeling of, oh, hey, I know you, that sort of comes over them in that moment. And so then what happens in that moment when the customer has that feeling, they're essentially sort of looking for that almost celebrity person's response to that. And this is kind of hard to articulate with clarity, but basically the likely response from that person is going to be something along the lines of, excuse me, do I know you? It's not like they're going to say that verbally, but that's what their unconscious communication is going to convey. Now, as I've experienced both from the business's perspective, but as well as the customer's perspective, in that moment when there's this, oh, hey, I know you, that's met with, do I know you kind of feel, there's this sort of awkward, jarring moment, and essentially it really breaks that bond that they would have otherwise had. Now, I don't know if this is an experience that you can associate with, but look, if you can't, at least imagine what it would be like. You've just bumped into a celebrity in the street, someone you recognise from your favourite TV show, and you get this little moment of excitement that comes over you, and you see it met with this feeling of kind of apathy, like what do you want? Get out of my way, sort of thing. That doesn't feel good. So you might have created that feeling of authority, but you probably lost the feeling of trust in that sort of awkward, jarring moment. It would be kind of like if you're going in for surgery, you're feeling very vulnerable about it, and you meet up with your surgeon, and your surgeon has this sort of, arrogant kind of attitude where they're just looking down their nose at you like you're just some pleb getting in the way of their next round of golf. Authority might be there, but the trust goes out the window. So basically, by implementing the strategies that I've described so far, you've already got a sense of familiarity on their side of the fence. What you want to do now is create a sense of familiarity on your side as well to really cement that bond. Now, you could just kind of, brush up on your acting skills and sort of remember to pretend to act like you already know something about them to create a sense of familiarity on your side, but there's a lot more effective way that I'm about to share with you. Now look, there's actually a number of ways that you can do this, but this is what I found to be the simplest. Just about everybody's got a contact form on their website, right? And you'll usually have name, phone number, email address, maybe a little bit of extra details about location. And then the bottom box is usually the big one, and most people will just label it simply comments, and that's where the user can put in any additional information if they want to communicate to the business when they're making contact. Remember at the beginning how I promised you I was going to show you some really simple stuff that most people just completely overlook, and your comments box in a contact form, that's a classic example. Your comments box can actually act as a goldmine when it comes to creating that sense of familiarity if used appropriately. Let me show you what I mean. And to show you in a way that makes it easy to understand and go and take action on, let me use the example of my coaching business, Top of the Class Professional Tuition. Now, here's the contact form and our contact page. We ask for the person's name, email, contact number, all the usual stuff. We also ask for the student's name, year level and subject, just a little bit of extra information. But instead of just putting comments or questions in their comments box, we actually encourage the customer to give us some additional details about what's going on with their son or daughter. Or we ask the customer to tell us about their strengths and weaknesses, what goals they have for them, basically share with us some insight about what's going on for their child. Now, prior to doing that, when we just did what everybody else does and just put comments or additional questions, some people would sort of elaborate and give a lot of detail, but most people wouldn't really say much in that box. And so then we'd receive the contact information in email form. We'd then call the customer back and say, hi, we're calling from Top of the Class. Thanks for filling out the contact form. Look, tell us a bit more about what's going on with your son or daughter so that we can line up the best tutor for them. And so then we tried experimenting with changing just this one little thing, which was to encourage the customer to give us as much detailed information about their child as possible. In fact, there's a video on the contact form that says, fill out the contact form and tell us what's going on with your child. Even if you call the company outside of hours, the voicemail will encourage customers to fill out the contact form and tell us as much about your child as possible. Tell us what's going on with them at school, tell us a bit about their past results, etc., etc. So now when we receive that information from the contact form via email, we already know a little bit more about what's going on with their situation. So when we call them back, it's a lot less generic and a lot more personal, a lot more specific and relevant to what's going on with them. So in other words, we now present a feeling of familiarity about what's going on with them because of what they've told us in their contact form. So now that first phone contact that we have with the customer can be more like, hey, we're calling from top of the class. Yeah, it sounds like James is really struggling to kind of get his thoughts into the right words. It's very common with boys of his age. I can see he's got a NAPLAN test coming up soon, so it sounds like you're probably looking for someone that can help him really break down the questions and, prepare for upcoming assessment tasks. Now compare that with, hi, we're calling from top of the class. Yeah, just wondering how we can help out your son. There's a big difference there. Now, even if we were able to get the client to go ahead with the tutor that we'd recommended, the big hurdle that we were facing were continuation rates. So in other words, we'd, make a great sales pitch to the customer. If they did decide to get the tutor to come out to the home, the tutor would go out there, the customer wouldn't really get a really good feel for them, so then they'd often call us up and say, we don't want to continue anymore. Now, this problem with continuation was such a big hurdle for us, it almost drove us out of business. However, at this point, what we were doing, when we started encouraging the customer to provide us with as much information as possible about their child, we would then take that information, pass it along to the tutor, and then train the tutors how to talk and communicate about that upon first meeting. So basically, we'd gone from a situation where this stranger's turning up to the house saying, okay, how can I help you? Through to this stranger's turning up to the house, but they already seem familiar with the background information about what's been going on for the client and their family. And since implementing that strategy, continuation rates then no longer become a problem, which enabled us to be able to grow and expand and employ hundreds of tutors and help thousands of students all over Australia. So now imagine what it's like. You meet a TV personality in the street, you've got that, oh, hey, I know you kind of feel, and then you're met with exactly the same feel from them too, like they already know you too. Now that's a really powerful way to cement a very strong bond in a very efficient manner. Now here's the dual purpose that this serves. Not only does it help to cement the bond that they have with you, but it also helps to cement the bond that you have with them. And no doubt you remember what it's like dealing with a client where you do have a stronger connection with them too. You actually enjoy working for them. Obviously you're going to do a better job for them, so they benefit because they're going to get a better outcome. You're going to benefit because you're going to have a more pleasant experience dealing with them. Basically, when there's a stronger bond between business and client, it creates a situation where everybody benefits. And so therefore it probably comes as no surprise when you look at the contact form down below, we've done exactly the same thing there too. So if I've done my job right here, hopefully you're starting to feel a bit curious, to want to know exactly what this experience feels like for yourself. And even if you're not, I encourage you to give it a go and just feel how it feels. So just as we've done with a coaching company, just as I encourage other clients to do, and just like I would encourage you to do with your customers too on your website, I'm now going to encourage you, when you fill out the contact form below, to give us as much detailed information about what's going on with your business as possible. Tell us a bit about your goals, your aims, any previous marketing attempts. Do you have a current website? Have you done any kind of SEO work? Give us as much information about your business, your industry, and marketing efforts so that when we get back to you, you will see that we already have a sense of familiarity about what's going on for you. When you fill out the form and you get the call back, I'd just like you to notice how that feels. And irrespective of anything else, I'd like you to just ask yourself the following two questions, which are A, wouldn't you like your customers to have a similar kind of feeling when dealing with you by comparison with your competitors? And B, wouldn't it make more sense to go with a company that you know is able to achieve those same results because you've experienced it for yourself? So there's lots of ways that you can create that sense of trust with your customers, but lesson 10 is that the simplest way is to use your contact form, especially your comments box, as efficiently as possible by encouraging your customers to provide as much background information about their situation as possible. So that way, when you make the first phone contact with them, you can show them that you have a familiarity with them as well as them having a familiarity with you.
What additional information would be helpful for you to know about customers prior to the first phone contact you'll have with them? How can you encourage customers to feel more comfortable to provide additional information on your contact form so that when you'll have direct contact, you can show them that you're already feeling familiar with their situation? If you'd like to experience this firsthand, just fill out the contact form down below so that when we get back to you, we can already be familiar with your situation to make it easy for you to feel this effect for yourself.
So I hope you found the information in this training series really valuable. Specifically, I hope that in the amount of time that you spend watching these videos, there's been information that you've gained that will now enable you to go out and take action on and make more progress, success and money than what you would have gained from that same amount of time in any other experience of your life. In other words, I hope that it's been a really efficient learning experience for you. You know, you go through life seeking knowledge and opportunities, and occasionally you come across these moments where, you know, you get this sort of aha moment that they call it, where you come across a really valuable piece of information or idea that then you go and take and spend the rest of your time building on and working on, and that's the thing that creates the success. So hopefully you've had at least one of those moments throughout this training series, but ideally you've had a whole bunch of them. Now, I place a strong emphasis on efficiency, because if you have the desire to grow and expand your business, you're going to find that your two most valuable resources are knowledge and time, especially knowledge about things that are going to help save you time. Now, as I'm sure you already know, most businesses fail when they start out. And of the ones that don't fail, they often get to this point where they can kind of, you know, exist and they're maintaining themselves. But then it gets to a point where they want to grow and expand further. And that's the point that really tests them, because at this point, you know, the business owner is working twice as hard and making half as much money, or sometimes no money at all, because they're putting all their resources and money back into the business. And it gets to a point where a lot of entrepreneurs just become so stressed and overloaded, they decide that they're happy to just, you know, exist at that level, because it becomes difficult to remember those dreams they had initially when they started out to, you know, grow and expand. Now, this whole video training series has been all about how to use your online exposure as an effective priming agent, or an effective point B, as I explained earlier on. When you're trying to grow and expand and you're pressed for time, having an effective website that essentially sells customers for you is an incredibly valuable tool. Now, obviously it's going to take a bit of time and resource to get set up, but once it's there, it's like having a production line in a factory. You know, point A, customer goes in, point B, and then point C, they come out primed, ready to, you know, have a strong desire for your service, ready to see your service as the best in the industry, ready to accept the quote that you're going to offer them, and also prepared so that it's going to be a more efficient job for everybody involved. So our goal is to help you break through the hurdles that are going to get in the way of the growth and expansion process when it comes to all things marketing related. Once your sales and marketing process is just set up, ready to go, all done and dusted, that way now you've got more time and resources. You can just sit back, collect a steady flow of leads coming in, pick the ones you want, and allocate your remaining time and resources to the things that are going to be more important to focus on to get you to the place where you want to be. So look, thank you for taking the time to stay with me through this experience. I really look forward to speaking with you if you decide to go ahead, fill out your details in the contact form below, and ideally to working with you as well to help achieve your goals, as well as turning those dreams into a reality. Talk to you soon.